And this will get you to the point where you have a mobile responsive web application. You're still paying for a website. You're still paying premium to just host a website. Let's stop paying. Welcome back to the series where I'm taking my current website and making it so I never have to pay for a website again. I'm showing you step by step how to use artificial intelligence if you've never coded before and showing you how to code an actual website. Therefore, the strategies I'm about to show you in this series can work with Cursor AI, can also work with Replit, because to be brutally honest with you, you really only have to pay for a domain now. Everything else is free if you know how to code it. But don't worry, I'm gonna show you how. So in this entire series, let's learn how to start using artificial intelligence to build out a website and remove a business cost. Sound good? Let's do it. Welcome back to one of the most in-depth series found on the internet that actually shows you how to use artificial intelligence in the context of coding. And I teach you how step by step with a bunch of different resources. Today's lesson is lesson 7, and we're going to be completing the footer of the website we've been working on. And on top of that, I'm going to make it mobile responsive. Now, if you just found this video or you just found me, well, hello, I'm Corbin Brown. And you're just like, how is this lesson 7? What did I miss? Because of the fact that I'm actually showing you how to build out a real website. This isn't a like 10-minute video where it's like, here's a website or like, here's a little game. This is like an actual showcasing for beginners of how to start and finish a real website. And the reason I keep enunciating real is that you probably already know this. But there's a lot of fairy dust out there where it's like, it shows you a 20-minute video and by the end of it, you're like, that was cool, but what did I actually learn? Therefore, in order for me to show this in the context that you're a beginner, I really had to build out a playlist. We're talking about 30-minute videos, 37 minutes, 30-minute, like this is lengthy. But by the end of it, you'll be able to have a full comprehensive idea to be a front-end engineer that works with artificial intelligence. Therefore, if you haven't started at the beginning, which is lesson 1 right here, check it out in the description down below. Just click the description, scroll down. It'll be the playlist. I'll leave it as well on my channel so you can just kind of find it. It's called Building a Real Website. But before you leave, make sure you leave a like. It's free. And you'll be back here anyways, so you'll be able to see this video again. And you'll be like, oh, I remember this video. This is where I started. Sound good? I'll see you there. Okay. For everyone else that's watched lesson 1 through 6, I mean, we've been going a lot here. This is a lot. This is a lot. For now, though, we're on lesson 7. Last major announcement before we jump into lesson 7, and I show you how to prompt with AI and code with AI in the context of a footer and making it responsive for your web application is what's happening next. So what you'll notice is that lesson 8 and lesson 9 have like a little white line drawn above it. Why is that? Well, first off, lesson 8 is going to show you how to build out a newsletter CTA. And what I mean by that is basically the ability to handle webhooks effectively and securely within your software/web application, e.g., you put your email there and it signs it up to any newsletter that you currently have. This type of tech and workflow can be applied to anything though. This kind of lesson is very powerful. This allows you to connect to external APIs and leverage it in a secure way. So lesson 8, newsletter and webhook, and lesson 9, which is I'm going to build a real quick contact page for anyone that wants to have a contact page on their website and the ability to have a custom domain, e.g. not Firebase domain, but like webcafeai.com domain. Those lessons are going to be found on the school community here, which is fine. You don't have to join. You're like, Corbin, I don't care. I don't want to join. I don't want to pay you. That's fine. You don't have to. You'll get basically 80% of what you need to know through this entire playlist that you're seeing already through this entire YouTube playlist that you are currently on. Although that price you see right there is going to raise over time. So you can lock in $19 now or just be like, I don't need those lessons. That's fine. You don't need those lessons. It's okay. I also plan on doing, half the AI software playlist on this community as well. Okay, you don't care. That's fine. That's fine. Let's jump in here. So first off, let me identify what a footer is and what I mean by mobile responsive. First off, if you've never done web development, the footer is anytime you scroll down to the end of a web page, that's it right here. So it's like section right here that you see. This is the footer. Basically the bottom half of the website. Typically found in footers, you're going to find relevant links. You're going to find terms of services. You're going to find privacy policies. You're going to find like social media links, stuff of this nature. Now, the second one, which is mobile responsive, that's an umbrella term that I use in the context of, does it look good on tablet? Does it look good on a smaller laptop screen? The easiest way for us to see whether it looks good or not is we can actually leverage Chrome. This works on other browsers, but from my personal experience in developing web applications in softwares, Chrome is amazing because what it allows us to do is this. We can right-click the screen in our Chrome browser and simply hit inspect. Now, when we do inspect here, obviously it's going to put in the elements. Console is very important in the context of software. This is like where you get messages, console logs, etc. But what we care about in today's video is this little button right here. I click this, and what this allows us to do is that within Chrome, we can see how our web application is going to look depending on the screen size. So either we can go responsive here or be like, how does this look on iPhone 14 Pro Max? Okay. Kind of okay. That's the idea here, though. How does this look on iPad Air? Okay. I see. And you can click through this. You can do responsive here, which allows you to drag this little bar right here to kind of see how your website interacts with different screen sizes. So we're going to leverage this today. I'm going to show you how to do good practices when it comes to the CSS files, etc. Shall we finally jump in? You're like, Corbin, stop talking. You talk too much. I get it, okay? Let's go to VS Code. We're in VS Code. We're good to go. Let's go to our cheat sheet. As you already know, we got to go to our directory when we do commands, as this is where our code is stored. So we're going to do this, boom. And when I say stored, that's this entire shabam here. Obviously, we went over this in past lessons. I'll repeat myself a lot in these later tutorials here, just because at the end of the day, when you're learning, you need to hear it again. That's anything with learning. Like when you hear it multiple times, you'll be like, okay, now I remember. So from here though, remember npm start. npm start here, hit enter, and we're going to launch our localhost 3000, which allows us to see visually what our current web app looks like, which if you didn't know, this is where we're at up to this point. We currently have a nav bar. We have a nice little notification bar, a banner that works all intuitively. This all works from our past lessons here. We have our current investments found here at Web Cafe. And now we're going to be adding a footer here. But in reality, the reason we're jumping to the footer here is due to the fact that the newsletter CTA, which I may add here, or alternatively add below here, that's obviously going to be in the school lesson. So I kind of wanted to wrap up what's found on YouTube first. So what I like to do is once we have the npm start running in one terminal window, just hit Command N, Command Control N, I believe. It opens a new terminal window. This allows us to then do further commands when it comes to GitHub, everything above the board there. Perfect. Let's go ahead and do this. If you've seen the series, you already know the situation now. Get yourself a cup of coffee. I'm going to listen to some Swedish House Mafia. Mix. I'll come back here. I'll show you exactly step by step how I got my new footer here, AI prompts I use, good practices, etc. So I'll see you probably in 10 to 20 minutes here. See you then. Wait, one last thing. As you already know, you're like, Corbin, you forgot something. I know I did. Git branch. We're going to create a new branch here. First off, I'm going to delete my branch that I did in the past video because I don't need it locally anymore. That's going to be git branch.d-d. Now let's create a separate branch for the purpose of the footer and responsive. So we're going to git checkout -b. I'm going to do footer, and we'll just do rep, footer rep. Kind of like a gym. When you go to the gym, you like to do a bench rep, foot rep. Here we go. So we got a new branch here, footer rep, and we're going to go. So we know our main branch is our stable branch. We don't want to make any drastic changes within our main branch for obvious reasons, so we can roll back to it if we mess up dearly in the footer rep branch. For now, though, let's proceed and do our footer. We got our footer here. Let me show you step by step how I went ahead and created this. Now, obviously, the footer is not using the correct copy for Web Cafe. It's using Apple copy here. When I say copy, I'm referencing Shop and Learn, Account, Manager, Apple ID, stuff of this nature. From what you see here, you scroll down. There's a pretty good structuring here for a footer. Let's find out how I did it. Coming over here to ChatGPT, I always like to start my chats with the broad goal of what I'm trying to do. So what I said is this. Okay, we're creating a footer for a website today. Call the files footer.js, footer.css. Let's copy exactly what's shown in the attached image and use this as a placeholder image for the icon. And then gave a placeholder image. You're probably familiar with this with the past lessons. Therefore, all we need to do is come over to our views. This is where we put major sections of our landing page. Right-click, new file, create the footer.js, create the footer.css, blank files. When approaching the footer, you can either give a general direction or alternatively, look at another website's footer, like the styling, like the structuring, everything like that, and screenshot it. With this screenshot, I went ahead and took Apple's footer here. What you'll notice is that the major components that I personally liked were the borders from here and here. I liked this little logo of Apple with like a nice little like subsection. In addition, I really liked this bottom part here where it has like one sentence and then legal stuff implied at the very, very bottom. And then we'll get an output here that obviously won't look exactly like it, but it'll put us in the right direction. So we'll get our first output here of the JS, and then we'll get our second output here of the CSS. Now, all you have to do is simply copy and paste. I'll give some perspective here though. This is where I started. So let me copy the first initial code I got. Copy JS, paste over here. Let me get the CSS as well. Copy CSS, paste over here. Let me show you what it originally looked like on the first output. This was the first output and what it looked like. Now, obviously, this isn't what we want, but using this, we can go ahead and start structuring it and get a footer that we like so that our footer can change into this. And then last thing, obviously, in order to render it, we're going to come back to our JS file. We're exporting as footer, therefore in their homepage.js. So we'll import it as footer from footer.js, views, and then we'll place it under the investment G section and the top fold section, so it's at the very bottom of our website. So first major thing that you saw that was wrong with that original output was the underlying logo was all the way over here. We want it right there, right? So we want it in the top left how Apple did it. So what I did was I simply just screenshotted that very specific part, and I said, make it look exactly like this. Notice the border on the top. So it didn't have the border originally either. And then I provided the relevant code that it provided up to that point, which was just the image file. And then it said should be left and then Web Cafe Holding Company to the right, like an image, and then the rest. Gave me the code. Remember, copy, paste, copy, paste. JS over, CSS over. That put me a better direction. And then the next thing I didn't like was the fact that all of the columns were center aligned. To solve this, I simply asked it to go left align. In addition, notice how Web Cafe Holding Company is in its own column here. We don't want that. We want it to be above right here and then everything below that. So I simply said it in plain English. Better, this is what we currently got, but one issue. Notice this. Gave the relevant code, which was the logo and Web Cafe Holding Company, which correlates with this code. It's in its own column, but with the original footer, it was above all the other columns aligned left. Therefore, we need to wrap this in another CSS class to do so. Let me explain that a little bit more. When I say wrap code in another CSS class, here's what's going on. Originally, footer top did not exist. Therefore, when footer top did not exist, the footer columns, this was all jumbled up into one div here. When it was jumbled up into one div, it causes it so that when you try to manipulate a certain section of it, everything gets manipulated. Therefore, a workaround or something you can put in your toolbook here is that sometimes for alignment and structuring, you want to wrap the underlying element in another div, a parent div for the child div here. Therefore, we can treat this differently than we would for the footer columns. Basically, before I wrapped it in the CSS class, this was all treated within this same parent element. But now that I wrapped it in a CSS class, this in a CSS class, outside of this one, I can manipulate this and put it above here and have everything below what's happening down there. If that didn't make that much sense, don't worry. Typically, you don't even have to tell it to wrap it in another CSS class. It kind of already knows to do that if you just gave it the original prompt without this sentence. Now, the next issue that was found within that original output was there was no bottom section. It just completely ignored this section that I wanted. So what I did was simply screenshot that section, said, okay, below footer columns, I referenced the div class here. Let's add the attached image. How did I know it's footer columns? If I come back to our code here in the JS, if I simply double click this or hover, you'll notice this little white line takes us all the way down here. And I know that if I want to place an element below this div, outside of this div, I'll place it like this, footer bottom. So what I did was I referenced the whole class rather than copying all the code. I can just reference this top part here, and GBT is smart enough to recognize that, okay, you mean everything below this. And it did that. Went ahead and created this entire section here below that original div. And just so you know, when a div is closed, you can kind of see it with like div here, and then notice that little slash that shows you that that element is closed there. Now, what's super cool here is that it also gave me the relevant CSS associated with this new element. And just to clarify again, this new element is this one right here. And instead of giving me the entire footer.css, it gave me the CSS relevant to this new element we just created, which is gonna be the footer bottom. Here's what's cool about that. And here's something you can learn real quick. What I like to do is that for specific elements found within a component, I like adding some comments here. Comments are code that is not read, but it's for your use. So what I do is I typically just add like duplication of what section we're referring to here. So for me, I'm gonna call this footer bottom. I know that. So I'll just like paste it 4 times to kind of separate the CSS blocks between each other. Because if you get a very complex web page, you're gonna have a ton of different elements and it can get really jumbled up and you're like, wait, where is this again? Where's this again? If you have nice little chapters here, little sections here, you'll be able to find that code easier. The next issue I was having with this output was the border itself wasn't going in between this sentence and then this section here. And as a side note, to make this so that it went horizontal like this, I basically just copied that entire section and I was just like, make this a row so it's all one line. But I was having issues with this border here just registering. It kept putting it in the wrong area. I kept trying. I was like, you know what? Let me just show you something new. And that's something new here is that we can create an entire div element that is just a border. So I simply said, okay, let's just do this, make border, and then gave the code as its own div element so I can adjust it from there. And it did that. What you'll notice is if I come back to the code here, it's its own div element, which is footer border. And then in our CSS, this is where I can adjust it. Come right here, I can add the height, color, opacity, width, and everything. And that allowed me to put it right above this footer section here, right above these links, right there. So keep that in mind. If it's giving you trouble or issues, sometimes approach it in a different manner. As originally, when we were creating the border, as we did here, we did this as a border top, which means it's going to take the entire div element. So in this context, the footer top. And the footer top in this context encompasses the dark logo, the Web Cafe logo, plus Web Cafe Holding Company. And we use border top here in order to be like at the top of this div element, just give a border. The alternative way to approach this is going to be providing a entire div element that is just a border itself. So footer border. Two different ways you can approach the same type of logic. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and update this copy so it's relevant to Web Cafe. I'm also going to make it so that there's external links going to be associated with this footer element, and keep going here. I'll see you soon. Went ahead and changed the copy of our footer here. So now we are doing something that is more aligned with Web Cafe, such as social media, investments, education, paid promotions. Now for all these columns except the last one, they're all going to be external links, which we've learned in the past, where simply you click it, it'll bring you to that web page. As a side note, you might be like, Corbin, what is digital nomad? What are you talking about? If I click it, this is my second channel here. I actually plan on going full-blown digital nomad next year. I'll be traveling around different countries. I'm going to show you how to do it as well, what the cost is associated with it, everything by the board. That's a little side note, but check it out if you want to learn all that kind of stuff. The last column here is actually a button that when I click it, it brings up the email option. So you can automatically email me if you want to contact me for paid promotions. Then obviously we just changed the copy over there to reflect our branding. Let's find out how we did it. To start off, I opened a new chat. I gave the entire JS file and I gave the entire CSS file. Copy, paste. Once I provided these files, I simply asked it, hey, I want to do something very specific here. And it said, okay, what do we want to do? How would you like to proceed? I went ahead and said, okay, help me create links for all of these. Make sure to open a new tab. Provided the relevant code. So this would be the footer columns. And then one by one, I kept it simple. For YouTube, go to YouTube. For X, go to X. For Digital Nomad, go to the second YouTube channel. For AI Marketplace, go to this link. So this is very much just here, there, here, there, here, there. Once I provided all that, it gave me all the relevant code. And I was able to copy and paste over. Now, one thing you'll notice about links in development is they're not going to look like this right away. They're not going to have this coloring. They're going to have like a blue tinge or a purple tinge. How to solve for that is this. In the context of coding, that blue tinge and purple tinge is what we call decoration. So I'm going to say, okay, make it so there's no decoration on the link and also make it so there's a slight hover effect. Give the CSS classes for the links. And it did. Simply copy this, paste it over my CSS class, and I was good to go. For reference, what I mean by that purple or blue tinge is if I delete that CSS that I was just given, that's what my links will look like. No good. Better. We have successfully created a footer together. This works. This is good. Now we're on to the next part of this video where we're going to do mobile responsiveness and just make this responsive on any type of screen layout. Let me show you what I mean. In theory, I can hit right inspect and show you, or you can come up to your browser, come up to the corner, and then just drag over. And what you'll notice is that we are not optimized yet. I mean, look at this. Watch this. Oh, that does not look good. Let's go to make this look good here so it actually looks good on a mobile view. I'm going to make the relevant changes, show you how I did it, showed you how I talked to AI, everything by the board. I'll see you there. I have successfully made this responsive. Watch this. When I drag this in our Google Chrome, it slides in. So this is for the tablet form here. Everything is now structured correctly. If I go all the way to mobile here, slides in again. And if you scroll down, looking pretty good. For reference, this is what it originally looked like on mobile. Obviously not passable for a real website. This is what it looks like now on mobile though. Pretty solid stuff. So let me show you how I did that. To remind you again on how to get that responsiveness and what I just showed you, right click, inspect, come up here to that little icon up there, click it, and then you can simply start dragging. So the process of making a web application responsive is actually a lot easier than you would think. I'll walk you through a couple examples and I'll give you some insight. First off, proceed with providing the entire JS file and CSS file. The way you should approach this is that we're going to optimize the CSS responsiveness for the footer, the investment, and the top fold. We're going to go to every single one of these CSS classes over here, and you'll see what we'll do. So let's start off with the top fold CSS. The first major thing you need to identify is that when dealing with CSS in the context of responsiveness, it will have this kind of bracket. At media, max width 768 pixels, and then the tablet will be minimum width 769 pixels to 1024 pixels. It is extremely important that you have this mid-width section here. If you don't, it won't read any of the code found in the mobile one. So check your AI outputs, make sure that's included. Next major thing for you to understand for responsiveness. Let's look at the hero title here. Notice how I have a font size of 2.4 rem. And then if I come out here to just our regular code, notice how the font size there is 4 rem. You might be saying, Corbin, how does it know which one to default to? That has to do with the fact of this one line here. What this is going to do is this is going to override any code found here. So in this very specific context, if it's found in a media screen that is max 768 pixels or under that, we're going to override the original value of 4 and we're going to place it with 2.4. In addition, if you don't adjust any of the other code found within that CSS file, such as color or margin bottom 20px, This code exists here already. So you don't have to retype out that code. It already exists there. In theory, though, if you wanted less margin bottom, I could go here and put it to 10, etc. So the purpose of responsiveness is that we're changing very specific CSS elements to look better on mobile, tablet, or a smaller laptop screen. Knowing this just as an overarching thing to understand, typically with mobile and tablet responsiveness, it has to associate with a couple of CSS elements. This typically associates with font size. In addition, flex direction of the actual elements themselves. Let me explain a little bit more. So for example here, what you'll notice is that our font size is obviously pretty decently big here. So as you get a smaller and smaller screen, font size for Automate, everything's gonna be smaller. The subtitles are gonna be smaller. Like everything's gonna be a little bit smaller to adjust for the screen size. And then in addition, notice for an investment G section here, it's in a row. What typically happens when you go to tablets and mobile though, is that you'll flip the direction here to column. Boom, now it's in a column. Notice if we kept it as a row, this is kind of how the UI would look. But don't worry, most of this ChatGPT handles. Therefore, the workflow is this. You're going to copy your entire JS file, top fold. You're going to copy your entire CSS file. You're going to say, okay, see this code, paste over both. And the reason you're copying over the JS file, you might be like, why do we care? Is that this gives ChatGPT the structuring of whoever is the larger div, different sections. Like it gives it context of where this CSS class is associated to. Once you have both though, we are simply going to add one sentence here. Let's make it mobile responsive and tablet responsive. Just output the CSS relevant to this. And there we go. We get the relevant CSS class for responsiveness. Come down here. Notice bad output. We need that min width. You need this. Trust me. So add that if it isn't on this output from ChatGPT. But if it is, you're good to go. Copy, paste over, make your adjustments, and proceed. And then from there, it is as simple as providing the next file. Okay, good. Next file, whatever your next section is. So for me, it's Visual Module JS and Visual Module CSS. Provided all the relevant code. And then I got the relevant mobile CSS and the tablet CSS. Now, what's great about the responsiveness and why I typically leave it till the last part is because of how simple it is to implement in your code. It really is as simple as copy code, go to your relevant file here, so Visual Module CSS, and just paste it at the bottom. So you'll have all your main CSS here, and then your responsiveness CSS at the very bottom. This really good organization for scaling. With this knowledge, rinse and repeat and proceed. And this will get you to the point where you have a mobile responsive web application. Now, what I suggest you to do is you don't have to follow everything ChatGPT says to a T. Make adjustments. For example, in mobile, this font was still too big. So I made it smaller, made this smaller, made some adjustments here and there. But overall, it gave me the structure and gave me the direction of where I need to go for this to look good on any screen. With all that looking good, let's go ahead and push this branch to GitHub. Make sure you leave a like if you felt like you learned something up to this point. It's free and it helps me out here. So it's going to do git add. Make sure we are in the current branch, which is going to be foot rep. So I can check that by doing git branch. Okay, footer rep, git add, git commit, -m, and we'll say responsiveness. Good. Git push origin, and then whatever branch you're in, grab that. Here we go. So we push this to GitHub. This will all go away. Cleared. Coming over to GitHub here, we're going to hit compare and pull request. If you've seen my previous lessons, you already know what's up. And we'll say footer done and responsiveness. Here we go. Come down here, create pull request. With that done, we're going to say merge pull request. Confirm merge. Now that we've merged with our main branch, we can delete this branch in the cloud. With that merged, we can come back over here. We're going to say git branch, git checkout main. So now we're in the main branch. And what you'll notice is that all those changes, they don't exist, because we need to pull the most recent branch from the cloud, the most recent code, what we just merged. Git pull origin main. Boom. There we go. We have successfully pulled the most recent main branch, which was a merge of the footer rep branch. If I come over here, you'll see this in the logs. Notice it's a merge pull request here. We're good to go. The next two lessons you'll see in this series will be found in my school community. As I discussed earlier, we're going to learn how to deal with webhooks and external applications on top of that, contact page and making a custom domain. And then finally, I'll have the last lesson that wraps this all together on this YouTube series here, giving you context and best practices of how to move forward from here, and maybe some insight on what I plan to do next when it comes to building out an entire software in a similar style. But that just about does it. Make sure to subscribe here, and I'll see you in the next video. Oh, we're mobile responsive now. Oh, it's responsive. Check out these videos if you want to see other stuff on my channel. That's my face, and this is mobile responsive. I'll see you in the next video.